Hello and welcome to KFC SuperCoach TV. Al Payton here with Tim Mitchell and a very special guest. We'll get to him in 1 second as we plan our trades for round 8. A lot of tricky little moves and I know I'm stressing about how much money we got to spend, but based on Tim's background there, it doesn't look like he is. He's just going all out to get the best players you possibly can. But we'll ask Tim about that in a minute and we'll get all your questions. So send them in over the next half hour or so. But we have to get to the Skodfather or Abdul, coach of Abs Magic, which finished 4th overall in KFC SuperCoach last year. Has become an absolute icon of KFC SuperCoach, and his YouTube channel is flying. But he's joining us today as a special guest to discuss, I suppose, we'll find out how his team's going this year and what he thinks we need to be doing this week. But Abdul, great to have you on board.
Thank you very much for having me on board. I really appreciate it. I was actually last year when you invited me on board. I was so nervous to meet both yourself and especially Tim Mitchell. So I had to wear nappies last year when I was on board. But but today I got no nappies on, so we're all very safe.
Oh, that's good to know. Well, I think your star is shot past ours in the SuperCoach world. How's the YouTube channel going, and more importantly, how's your team going?
Oh, well, the YouTube channel is going better than my team at the moment. I'm actually very surprised of how well it's going. I wasn't expecting it to be flying this high, so very, very happy. But the team, we're preparing later on. We're in no hurry. We just told the players just to calm down, no hurry, and we're gonna storm home. That's our plan this year. Last year we bolted home. This year we're just going to storm home towards the end.
I think he's got both of us covered easily, doesn't he, Al? And we jumped in the top 10K this week. I think you're a long way ahead of us, Abdul.
Well, I was in the top. No, I'm not really. I was in the top 4K last week. Unfortunately, I captained the wrong player, and but I've punished him, so it's okay. He's going to come good this week, and so I'm in the top 6K this week, so it's not that bad.
No, so where were you after sort of round 1 or 2?
Well, in round 3, I was 45K, and I was just checking out the competition. I didn't want to rush. I didn't want to scare anybody, so I was sort of watching the competition, see how they're all going, and I'm going to build up. The plan is to finish first again this year, or first for the first time, top 10 anyway. We're coming back from a long way back this year.
That's super impressive. And what about the trade situation? Because we know last year you made a lot of trades and actually ran out with about 6 rounds to go, which was an amazing effort to hang on to finish as high as you did. But are you being a bit more conservative this year, or not worrying about that?
This year we're not conservative. I've actually never had a trade left after round 15 in SuperCoach history. Even though I've always finished in the top 1%, I've never ever. I've had top 1% 7 years in a row now, except for 2021. But I've never ever had trade left. So I always go hard. But this year I'm going to slow down. Okay, I've decided I'm going to slow down. I've got 2 more weeks of trading, and then no more trades till round 13. That's the plan.
Wow, how many of you? Are we allowed to know how many you've used up until now?
I've used all of them. All my boosts. I've got no boosts left. I'm trying to find boosts from somewhere. I've gone to Victoria Market. They don't sell boosts, so I can't find any boosts. I've got no boosts left. They're all finished.
There's absolutely no chance you sit on your hands for 2 weeks, Abby. You're going to trade those 2 weeks that you plan to do nothing.
I'm just gonna. I'm gonna throw away the computer for 2 weeks. I'm just going to lock the computer away and pretend there's no SuperCoach. I'm not going to watch nothing. I'm just going to calm it down.
Yeah.
Is that partially some? I know there's a bit of concern going around at the moment about the cash situation in SuperCoach. We've got a few rookies that are absolutely flying, like a Sheasel or an Ashcroft. We don't want to be trading those guys if we can avoid it. And then there's not a heap of other options on the bench when you look at a Darcy Wilmot or an Alwyn Davey. And there's not a lot of cash coming from there, and then it's hard to see the next sort of lot of rookies where the money's going to come from. Is that sort of what's behind your strategy, trying to look ahead 2 or 3 weeks into the future?
The strategy actually is based on the buy rounds. In the buy rounds, we're not going to have many players left. If we bring in Primos and replace it with a rookie, there's going to be nothing left. There's no one on my bench. I've only got 2 players that are rookies that are playing, and they might not even play. And so I'm preparing for the bye rounds, and that's when the teams from behind catch up, and that's the plan. I'm trying to get to the top 500 by the end of all the bye rounds.
So, Tim, to welcome you on, what's your thoughts on I'm very concerned about this cash situation, and I've actually, by double downgrading last week, I've got enough money this week that I can get Clayton Oliver, which has been my plan for about a month, and he's finally come down in price a tiny bit, if you can call 650,000 odd a bargain. But now I'm really worrying, is that the right move to spend all my money, or am I better off finding a bit of value, and then I can maybe pick up another primo next week rather than sort of throwing all my eggs in the Oliver basket? But based on your artwork there, you don't seem too concerned about that. You just reckon if you got a guy who's going to score 130 every week, you just get him.
I've had sleepless nights all week pretty much, and not just because I'm up watching the SuperCoach Codfather YouTube page, which I do enjoy very much, Abs, but mainly trying to work out whether I burn my last boost and get Clayton Oliver in, which it's been a very hard 7 weeks really of KFC SuperCoach not having Clayton Oliver in my midfield. Thankfully, my sort of one premium midfield with Marcus Bontempelli there has somehow held up in the last month or so. I think I've had Taranto sitting at M2 at different stages, and Errol Goulden at M3 the week he scored 40 points, and it could have been absolutely disastrous, but I've somehow got myself into the top 10K. So I think this is the week. It's pretty hard to roll with sort of only one premium midfielder and get yourself right up to the top of the ranks. And I think it's even harder to get to the very top without Clayton Oliver. So I'm looking at sort of the top 5 players on the sort of overall points at the moment, Al, and I think I've got 4 of them before this week. So I've had Tim English for about a month. I had Marcus Bontempelli and Nick Dacos from the start. And I grabbed Jordan Dawson probably 3 or 4 weeks ago now. So the one missing from the top 5 in my team's Clayton Oliver. And then you look at his sort of next 3 weeks as well. I think he scored about 160 a couple of years ago when he played Gold Coast, who they've got this week. He's got Hawthorn, and although there's an article on the Herald Sun website today showing that the Hawks midfield has actually improved with some of those new names that they've got in there, like he could be absolutely monstrous in a couple of weeks against the Hawks. And I think pretty similar against Port Adelaide as well. Like they've got Willem Drew there who can do a job for Ken Hinkley, but I think Clayton Oliver could do a pretty big job there. Like he's had 2 down weeks. He was, 15 at halftime a couple of weeks ago against Essendon in gather round. He still scored 113. And he scored, I think, 98 a couple of weeks ago as well, which was like one of his sort of quieter weeks. So, it was a hard watch when he was 16 disposals at quarter time against North Melbourne, Al, and I don't think I can do that to myself for another week. So I'm pretty sure I'm just going to burn that last boost. Clayton Oliver in, Sam Simpson in, and then depending on the other rookies, probably have to go with Ryan Angling because I went early on Alex Chincotta last week. So that's where I'm leaning at the moment, but I can definitely understand people looking more for the value path as well and going for sort of Jack Sinclair, Jack Steele types that are closer to 550K this week.
Abs, what's your take on it? Have you got Clayton Oliver? And if you don't, do you think is a priority to just sort of torch your bench and whatever you need to do to get him in? Or do we wait maybe to the buys? A couple of people putting in questions about potential tags over the next couple of weeks.
I've noticed those questions actually, and they're very interesting. I wish I had Oliver, but I couldn't afford him. And I'm shopping. Well, on my channel, I've mentioned that I shop at Victoria Market. So for my players, and I used to shop at Chanel last year, but we don't do Chanel no more. So now I've gone Victoria Market. I have to go cheap. And so I've even tried Footscray and Sunshine Markets lately. And I was going to go for Soldo, but unfortunately there's news out that the Nank is going to be back in 2 or 3 weeks' time. So Soldo is out of the question, which now makes it hard for me to get Oliver. So unfortunately, Oliver's going to have to get him about 600K if I get him. My plan is in round 15 to do a lot of sideways trades. And I've built up about probably 8 to 10 players playing in round 15. And 3 of those will be sideways traded. And that's when I get my Olivers and Lairds and all the players that I'm missing. So in the meantime, the trick is to survive round 12, push round 13, and then round 14 is the killer. So round 14, I'm hoping to have about 8 players or 7 to 8 players that are primo keepers not playing, which will survive round 14, and then round 15 I go for the kill. I get all the Olivers and the Lairds and all the good boys. But my main goal right now is to get all these rookies off the field. I've gone down to 2. I've got, this week I've got 3. Next week I'll have 2. I have Ashcroft left, and I'll have Chinkota. Hopefully he plays. So that'll be my last 2 rookies on field until the bye rounds. And Chinkota should hold value. He should hold his scores, hopefully in the 80s. That's enough. And Setterfield, we're stuck with him. I can't get rid of Setterfield. He's driving me nuts. So I'm going to be stuck with Setterfield. I'm going to smash more guitars every week, and I'm going to go insane. But I'm stuck with Setterfield.
So if we're not paying up for Oliver, we're going presumably looking for some value options. And I mean, I absolutely fluked one a couple of weeks ago with Tom Hawkins at 430K. I mean, if you can find anyone around that price who's going to, hold a spot, make some money, score okay, maybe through to the buys, that might be the plan. Tim, this might be a bit of a painful question for you, but there's some value in defence, I think, this week. Will Day went up at 30 or 40 grand last week, but he's still under 500. So is he still a worthwhile pick? And I think the other guy might have also dropped under 500 before turning the corner. I don't know if we want to mention his name after how much his pain he's inflicted on you this week, but are these the sort of guys we should be looking at if we don't want to have to spend up for an Oliver?
Yeah, I think so. Well, you look at some of the most traded in players this week, Al, and the best value options are probably sort of numbers 7 to 10, I think. Jack Steele's the 4th most traded in, so he's come into about 5,000 teams already. Got North Melbourne this week. I can understand people, though, wanting to see him just perform at that sort of 120 level just for one more week, because scored a couple of 90s early on in the season, still carrying a bit of a sort of shoulder collarbone issue as well. But he was really good last week, late 11 tackles. So I can understand people getting him in this week, but at the same time, with a high break even, still you can wait one more week for Jack Steele. Clayton Oliver is pretty similar, isn't he? With the high break even, like his break even's 140 this week, but I don't think, like Abs is saying, 600K, barring the scenario that some coaches have brought up in the comments today, where he gets tagged in the next 3 weeks and goes sort of 100, 100, 100. He's unlikely to get sort of anywhere near 600K, like 620, 630 might be as cheap as he gets. So you're only getting a sort of 20% or $20,000 discount if you hold off for a couple more weeks for Oliver. But the value options here are like Patrick Cripps is 590K, got a low break even this week, 2 scores above 130 in the last couple of weeks. So even though Carlton's draw gets a bit tougher in the next month leading up to the buys, I think Patrick Cripps is a really good option at that price. He's still out of the premium midfield as sort of one of the lowest ownerships as well. So you get that sort of extra benefit of having a slight point of difference in your midfield. And the 3 guys from sort of 8 to 10 on that list of most traded in players are Stephen Cornelio, who's been looked really good the last couple of weeks. He's still only 526K. James Sicily, just I would sort of urge caution on him. He was good, really good in the last 3 quarters last week, but his role's still not great. And I think Sam Mitchell's flagged this morning that Changuoth Jiath and Luke Bruce are going to have a rest this week. So I don't know what that'll do to Hawthorn's defensive setup potentially. But yeah, I don't love the fact that James Sicily's having to play tall most weeks, and Blake Hardwick's the one taking all the kickouts now for the Hawks as well. So there are a couple of red flags with Sicily, and I'd probably wait and see how he goes against Fremantle this week before you'd consider bringing him in. But the player that other coaches are looking at paying an extra 30K, which is what I'd be doing instead of getting James Sicily, would be to go to Luke Ryan from Fremantle. He's just absolutely seagulling across that defence and picking up chips for fun. So taking most of the kickouts, although Hayden Young managed to sweep on a few last week. But Luke Ryan is really the sort of unsung premium of the season so far, averaging about sort of 115, 120, and still available for under 600K, which when you look at his scores, he's only really had 1 down score for the whole year. So really like Luke Ryan if you need a defensive reinforcement this week. And I think he's a nice point of difference as well, albeit I think Jack Sinclair's one that I haven't mentioned there either, and he's pretty cheap too. So you can't really go wrong with any of those 3 if you're looking for a defensive fallen premium this week, Al.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, and I think I might be bringing in Ryan this week. We'll see how we go with juggling the cash, but those are definitely the kind of options I'm looking at. And as mentioned, the buys. If you look at Hawthorn, Adelaide and Collingwood all have the bye in the same week in round 14, I think it is. So, your Jordan Dawson, Nick Dacos, Sicily, and Will Day, they're all going to be missing the same week. So if you've already got 2 or 3 of them, I don't know if you'd want to be bringing in another one. So
No.
Sinclair and Luke Ryan are both round 12 buys where there's only 4 teams missing, so probably easier to cover. So that gives them another little tick. And, of course, if you could afford Tom Stewart, Gold Coast and Geelong only have the bye. They're only 2 teams off in round 13, and that also throws up Trevor Summons, Will Powell as well as another big bargain that some people are considering this week.
That helps Sam Simpson, doesn't it, Al, who's one of sort of a couple of downgrade options that we're looking at this week. So you've got to pay $166K for him, which is $42K more than Ryan Angwin, who's probably more a borderline selection. Well, they're both really borderline selections, aren't they? I know Sam Simpson's got the issue potentially of Tyson Stengel back from injury in a few weeks' time, which might see him tipped out of that Geelong side. But if Sam Simpson can just hold on to the bye's abs, I think he could be a really nice rookie for us because of that bye that Al mentions. If he plays sort of in the first of the buys and then the last 2, and if he continues to score sort of 55, 60s, he might end up being that 18th or 19th player for us that just gets us a decent score, and then we can sort of hopefully come out of the buys full premium and turn Sam Simpson into an absolute gun at the end of them.
The only thing with Sam Simpson is he scored 2 goals, kicked 2 goals last week to get his 55 points. Yeah. They're forecasting showers this week at 164K. That's 40K above. 40K is actually a good profit these days from rookies. When I make 40K from a rookie, I'm very happy. To lose 40K, to spend 40K extra on a rookie with no job, he may have job security, but needs to kick 2 goals to score those 50s and 60s. Has been concerned, but we don't have many choices. I understand, and we don't have much luxuries this year to pick from. So what do we do? Do we get Wagner to 117K and just hope he gets a game because he's on the bubble again? So he's another option that hopefully one day he gets a game again, and we can get him for 50K cheaper. But then he's not making cash if he's going to sit on the bench. But how much cash is 60s? Yeah, 2 goals a week. I'm not sure. I'm not sold on him.
What about some of these? If you're looking for a cheaper upgrade, sort of primo that you might be able to get away with, what do you think of someone like a Will Powell at 482K? And Brenton's throwing one in here too about Ollie Wines, who's lost a heap of money. I'll look up his price; he's not much. But would you take a risk?
400K? He must
be 406.
Wow.
Yeah. The problem with Ollie Wines is he's not doing what he used to do.
He's averaging 70.
Yeah, even if you get him, he's going to average 70. It doesn't look like he's going to average 100 or 120 or whatever he was scoring last year. But then again, last year at this time, even the year before, he was averaging very low. Then he sped up after the bye rounds. But there was no Horny Francis back then. So so with Horn Francis in the team now, he's probably taking some of Ollie Wines' points, which could be a concern.
Yeah, well, Ollie Wines has scored above 73 twice this year. So he's scoring not even like a mid-pricer. He's scoring like a rookie almost. So
yeah,
no, I'd be steering well clear until we see at least a couple of games of him turning his form around, or if sort of some more regular opportunity opens up in that Port midfield. Because Abs makes a good point that with Butters, Rosie, Jason Horne-Francis all rotating through there, and Horne-Francis doing a lot of that sort of bulwark that Ollie Wines has done in the last few years, his output from a KFC SuperCoach perspective has just fallen off a cliff this year.
Yeah,
quick question for you, Tim, before we we'll get to some captain talk. You've got our running article, which is doing great guns. People can go and check that out at Code Sports and heraldsun.com.au about players likely to, or who might be in the mix to get DPP at round 12, which will come at a really interesting time as the buys hit. Who have you got on your list, and should we be thinking about that when we're making trades in the next couple of weeks?
Well, the main ones, we won't give away the numbers, Al. They are up on the Code Sports and Herald Sun and Advertiser website, so you can click on the article and have a read if you want to see the exact numbers of where some of these players are sitting after 7 rounds of footy. But Christian Petrarca, Sam Walsh, and Max Gawn are sort of the three main ones that are hovering close to that 35% threshold that you need to be at post round 11. You also have to play 6 games as well. So I think Sam Walsh needs to play 3 of the next 4 to have played enough games to be eligible for forward status potentially, which Michael Voss has been using him a bit at half forward since he returned to the team, with guys like sort of George Hewitt and Patrick Cripps really dominating the centre square setup, and Adam Chera playing some pretty good footy as well for the Blues in recent weeks. So that could be a real game changer, couldn't it? If Sam Walsh gets forward status in after round 11, like it'd almost be a must if that was to be the case. Christian Petrarca went up 1%, I think, last week after spending a bit of time forward and kicking 3 goals against North Melbourne. And Max Gawn, as I said, like he's the closest of that trio, or it might be him and Walsh very close to that 35% threshold at the moment. So if Max Gawn gets it, he's an interesting one, Abs, because like his job share with Brodie Grundy has clearly affected both of their scoring. Like, it doesn't look like either of them are going to go close to 120 or 125 average that we've seen in the past. That they're both scoring 80s and 90s, or going a little bit closer to 100 most weeks. But I think with ruck forward status for Gawn, especially as if that was to eventuate, especially as our trades get lower as well, like he could be really handy to have there at, say, F6 or even F7 if you're in a pretty luxurious position to potentially swing with Nick Madden and cover Tim English or Rowan Marshall or Sean Darcy in the event that any of those guys were to miss. And it has been a season of sort of some real carnage as well, hasn't it, Al, so far? And this week could be no different, potentially, with like Matthew Nick saying that they might need to manage Rory Laird at some point in the next couple of weeks. Jack Zeebel's still under an injury cloud. And although there's been conflicting reports, hasn't there, out of the West as well about Sean Darcy and whether he's going to be right for this weekend as well. So having that insurance of sort of a gun like Gawn, potentially being able to swing him into your ruck line from your forwards a bit later in the year could be absolutely huge. But yeah, that's one we'll be monitoring very closely heading into that sort of round 11 and round 12 when the changes kick in.
And your 100%. Your boy Darcy Cameron is going to come back soon. So
I think people have forgotten about him, Abs, haven't they? Like, he was scoring like he was going to be a top 2 or 3 forward. And then he went down, obviously. So he might be eased back those first couple of games. I'd be keen to have a look at him. But yeah, I think people strategically, if you're looking at upgrades this week, like I'd be trying to upgrade in your defence or in your midfield, because there's a fair chance, like, we're going to get a better indication in the next couple of weeks about who might be getting forward status. But the best DPP additions for round 12 look like they're going to be in the forward line. So I'd be loath to fill out my 6 forward spots, because it looks like there could be some absolute guns that get forward status in a few weeks' time.
Yep.
All right, guys, it's Friday night. The footy is on, and your KFC Friday night feast is on its way. Score free delivery on your Friday night footy feast every Friday when ordering through the KFC app or kfc.com.au. It's game on. That means it's time to talk captains. And, of course, we like to look at the Friday night game as a possible VC to kick things off. Anyone there that takes your fancy, Abdul?
Okay. I've got to say who's playing first. You got me off guard. Hang on.
Carlton and Brisbane at Marvel Stadium.
Okay. I'm going to pass on that game. I like the Richmond Taranto VC option. I really, really like it. Actually, Tim mentioned the other day on Twitter that it was 2-1 ratio for points for Carlton. So if Richmond get 2-1 ratio against West Coast, Taranto's going to be the one that scores all the points. So I'm really liking Taranto.
Well, he was Richmond's only ton against Gold Coast, wasn't he, Al? I think with his 140 odds. So his scoring's been crazy. Like I said it on the podcast this week, I thought he was capped at 100 or 105 average, but he's averaging 117. He's absolutely flying. So I really like him as a VC. If you want to go in that Friday game, Al, with a bit of Friday night footy, I think the 2 big guns from Brisbane are probably the way that you go. So Lockie Neal, if you've got him, really hitting his straps in the last 3 or 4 weeks, so I think he'd be a decent VC shout against the Blues. The only sort of red flag potentially with Carlton is that they've got Ed Curnow sitting there that could go to anyone who really cuts loose early on in a game. So if Michael Voss sees something that he doesn't like and Lachie Neale has 15 disposals in the first quarter. He might get the tag for the rest of that game. But I think one of Neale and Dunkley would be an okay shout. But the obvious moves this week, and I think probably the right moves, are to go Taranto VC against West Coast at the MCG, and then into one of Clayton Oliver against the Gold Coast, or Tim English against GWS, with Adam Kingsley flagging that Marcus Bontempelli probably gets a tag this week from the Giants. So if you were tossing up between Bont and English, seems like English is probably the safer captaincy pick of those two this week.
Yeah, I think Taranto is the standout for me. 133 3-round average, and coming up against the Eagles. Surely the Tigers have to win that one at the MCG, and we know Taranto could sometimes use the ball a little bit better, but you certainly couldn't question his.
You sure they're going to win?
No.
And I've learned my lesson. 122 VC score I'm taking this week. So if he gets a 122, if he gets a 120, I'm going to take it.
What's with 122? Where'd you pull that from?
That's what Bont scored last week, and I didn't take it. And so I'm going to take anything. Where 120, it's just not worth the risk. Anything above that, I'm just going to take it, or anything below that.
What's happened? Agree with that. You used to be such a gambler. We've gone soft.
I've been changed. This YouTube channel has changed me. I don't know what's happened. I've become. I don't know. It must be age. I'm 1 year older now, so just coming down.
Have you got one of those play buttons yet for your 1 million subscribers, or you're still on the way there?
No, I don't think I'm going to get 1 million, but I'm 2,000. I'm very happy. I'm blessed with 2,000, and my subs are the best subs in the world. They talk to me every day. They make me very happy.
Mate, it's been amazing. It's been amazing to watch your channel grow. I've loved it. So, well done. And Al, before we go as well, can we just give a quick shout out to Patch and Lek from Jock Reynolds as well, because they announced this week, which sort of sad in a way, but congratulations to them that they're going to be hanging up the microphone or the headphones or whatever you want to call it at the end of the year for the Jock Reynolds podcast, which has been an absolute institution of KFC SuperCoach for a decade or more. So, those boys have brought so much to our community over a very, very long time now, with sort of some of their predecessors like Jock and Crouching One and all the boys that initially started up that website. So, congratulations to them. And I'm sure if plenty of people will be tuning in over the remaining, what do we got? We're up to around 8, aren't we? So remaining 16 weeks or so that's the Jock Reynolds podcast will be running for. So just wanted to give those boys a shout out before we finish up.
And I never missed one of their episodes. I'd say in the last 10 years, I never missed one of their episodes, especially even when they started with the original Jock. I just loved him. And he actually inspired me to open up my YouTube channel and to act with a different character. So bring comedy into the videos. And Jock was the legend.
Anthony Nichols says...
this is the character. All right, we better.
That went straight over our head. Anthony Nichols says, "Who's going to crack the first 200 this week? If Clayton Oliver kicks well, it'll be this weekend against Gold Coast."
Yeah,
we haven't had one this year, have we?
That is the only thing stopping Clayton Oliver cracking 200. The fact that he's butchered the footy the last 3 weeks, but if he hits a few more targets, I would not be surprised if this is the week that he gets it. I thought at quarter time on Sunday that Tom Hawkins was a Monty to go 200. And he slowed a bit and still scored 185. But there's no one's got there yet. But he's sitting behind me, just lurking ominously. And I reckon it'll be Clary this week if he goes at sort of 70% kicking efficiency. I think this can be the week he goes 200.
Is that because you're getting him in?
Well, absolutely. Normally when I get players in, they go 20, not 200. But I've got a really good feeling. Got a really good feeling about Clary this week. I think he's just been knocking on the door, scoring 120s and 130s. He's got that 156 from earlier in the season against Sydney, but I think he's got that monster in him. We know that from previous years, and I think this might be the week that he goes monstrous against that Gold Coast midfield without Touk.
Yeah, it could go huge. Well, I'm just hoping that Melbourne put Cozzy back in that midfield and put Brayshaw in that midfield again, and just sort of push up Ollie to the forward line or to the defence. Just give him less midfield time. I'll take that.
Can you give us just a comer down before we wrap up?
And everyone, just a comer down.
I'll be backing Tim Taranto, I think, with my VC this week against the Eagles. If he doesn't fire, though, it's not 100% clear who to go with. There's a few possibilities, but one man, I don't know if you had to see on him last week, Abdul, but what do you think about Nick Dacos against the Swans this week?
Well, Nick Dacos and me don't get along right now. We've sort of had a bit of an argument. So he's on my. The only 2 times I've put the captain on Nick Dacos, he scored a 108 and a 72. All his other big scores, I never had them as a captain of VC. So obviously there's something in there. So he doesn't like to be my captain. So no, he's a pass.
Not this week. Not this week with Ryan Clark lurking. I think Ryan, as Trav says there, Ryan Clark's going to go straight to him. I think what'll happen is he'll probably go against Adelaide. The same thing happened, didn't he? Like Ben Keys got flagged as the tag. So Nick Dacos started in the middle rather than at half back. And then he swung around, still had his 28 disposals, but sort of didn't have the same telling impact that he had on the game. And I would not be surprised if that happens again this week. Starts in the middle. Anytime he goes back, Ryan Clark just goes and sits in his pocket, and he'll probably score 90 to 100 still. But I definitely wouldn't be captaining him this week. Although I have seen some people trading him out, which I think is absolute lunacy as well. I definitely wouldn't be doing that off the back of one bad game. Yeah,
plus his disposal efficiency was very low last week compared to most other weeks. Like it was very uncharacteristic. So that was also a factor.
Who are you gonna captain in 2028 when Tassie comes in? Who's going to be your first Tassie captain?
Well, Lockie Cowan, will he be the captain of Tasmania?
Nah, he's going nowhere. He's going nowhere, Lockie. I reckon the Blues will be putting him on a 10-year deal next week just to make sure.
What about there might be Sam Banks, I think, is it at Tigerland? Hasn't cracked the game yet, but he's a Tassie kid from draft a couple of years ago. Wouldn't mind seeing a couple of those kids get some exposure. But anyway, we won't turn into the Richmond podcast. That could go downhill very quickly. Surely this week they turn it around. Taranto gets a massive score, and we're all happy days next week. Because I think we've got the Cats after that. So, could get ugly. All right, we better...
Al trading Sam Banks to Tassie is the highlight of this week's show. I've enjoyed that. Good price. As long as he's cheap, Al. Can we keep him at 123K for 2028?
It's another 5 years. We'll see how we go. All right. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Thanks, Abdul. I think it's at Magic Moments 000 on Twitter if you want to see some hilarious Supercoach talk over the weekend. Lots of smashing guitar gifts going on when players aren't performing quite up to Abdul's elite standards. But where can we find you on YouTube? That's where it's really happening.
If you just type in Scott Farver or Abs Magic, you should be able to find me because I've got those 2 names tagged.
Brilliant. Get on there and watch all those fantastic Supercoach videos. Great to have you on board. Thanks, Tim. Thanks, everybody. Good luck this weekend in round 8. Yeah, go Clary if you do happen to get him in. And maybe Luke Ryan for me, but we'll see. Good luck, everybody. We'll catch you soon.
Go Tigers.